I'm a stroke triumphant. I survived a stroke on a plane. I was blind and paralyzed, and I got new vision. And I'm just, it's a blessing to be here in any way that we can work together for our common good and collaboration. I'm up for that. We got a lot to do in 2021. We got a lot to do this year.
All right, Sir Bailey, you have an opportunity to chime in here. I still need about maybe 30 more seconds.
So thank you for your kind words, Princess Sheppy. Happy New Year to you. Blessings, Sister Donna. Definitely, I love your photography, and hope that we can do a session or two this year, or 3 or 4 regularly with some students at Free LA or anywhere else. God bless. God bless. Thankful to see Corns are here, and just that everybody is healthy and well. Faith. Habari Gani. Today is Imani, and it's, you know, by faith we move mountains. It's impossible to please God without faith. That we must first know that He is, and He's a rewarder of those that diligently seek Him. We thank God that all things work together for good that are called by the Lord. You know, and these are things of faith. By faith, we understand that it's Abba, Father, that's protecting us. So thank you for having me, and look forward to our collaboration and synergy and making a positive difference in 2021. Bless the Lord. Sure, I'm see ya.
Yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah. As you see, I'm kind of hiking, climbing, so I'm going to turn off the camera because something tells me that I might have a slip in this area, and I don't want y'all to see
it. We don't want you to have it.
But I'm sure I'm gonna be all right. I'm gonna be all right. Bless up. Appreciate you.
Bless up. Okay, I'm gonna get started. I'm gonna go ahead and start our initial videos. By then, hopefully, we'll be live on Facebook. But right now, we're all recording. So let me do a couple of things here. Sure, I can see myself and click the start. And I've got such a wide range of choices here to begin with. So I'm going to begin with where it makes sense to begin with. Super Jubilee. Okay, well, we're live. And thank you so much for joining us. This is our Fridays for Future Forgiveness. This is Friday, January 1st, 2021, the start of a brand new year. And we have someone from Bermuda joining us. Mary Butterfield is coming in. Just a moment, please. Thank you so much for joining us. This is, again, a continuation, really, of a lifelong journey that I've been on to find peace and serenity and unity in the community. And those things, I was born here in the United States, but it was only when I traveled to Bermuda that I actually felt the power of peace. And that peace, I'm convinced, was a reflection of the spirit of the ancestors that were surrounding me. Bermuda, as you may or may not know, is hundreds of miles, kilometers out into the middle of the ocean. However, it is the closest landmass to what we call our Ma'afa, or our Middle Passage, where so many millions of our ancestors began but never made the journey. But here we are, and they're still here, and we're all here together. So this emblem that you see is called a Millennial Arch. In 1999, just before the turn of the new millennium, there was a voyage made. It was called, of all things, the Middle Passage Voyage, because what happened is that during construction in Wall Street, downtown New York, there were uncovered bones of formerly enslaved Africans. And rather than overlook the fact, oh, Corin Smith, you're here. Perhaps you could tell the story a little bit better than I can. So, Corin, could you tell a little bit about the arch that we see in front of us?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Andrew. Good day, everyone. Happy New Year. Great to see everybody again. Yeah, Bermuda is one of the most remote islands in the Atlantic region. we're very unique geographic features. We're actually a mountain, an extinct mountain, and we're kind of like a continent in and of itself. Although we look like an island, but we're actually a mountain feature, right? So, and we're the closest sort of trading partner to the United States, the closest independent territory to the superpower status of New York as an economic engine, and Washington as the seat of the federal government. So we benefit from a lot of the privileges and perks of being that neutral place close to the American power structure. And yes, as Andrew's saying, if something happens in New York, like the African burial ground project that was discovered when they were building a federal building and had to excavate the remains of the bodies that were buried there, Bermuda just gets brought into the conversation as a part of the healing process that was created to memorialize that forgotten burial ground in New York. So this particular structure was commissioned by a lawyer from the U.S. Virgin Islands, who insisted that the memories of the forgotten dead, not just in Wall Street, which apparently is one of the largest burial grounds in the East Coast, which people have forgotten. He was also making it clear that we have forgotten that hundreds of thousands or more people were lost at sea in the Middle Passage prior to enslavement. And in his diplomacy, he felt it was necessary to memorialize both the African burial ground story and the broader story of the Middle Passage lives that were lost. And Bermuda just became the outpost for him to memorialize that story, because we were closest to the epicenter of New York, the United Nations, and all that sort of stuff. This particular replica of that monument is on the grounds in St. Croix, at a school complex there. We as Bermudians underwrote the creation of this memorial so that we don't forget that the original monument was placed in the ocean near Bermuda. So we're looking to get, I think now 20 years later, a broader understanding of what forces created this atrocity called slavery, or American-style slavery, which laid the foundations for an even broader destructive force, if you want to put it that way, or creative force that we now call capitalism. Because somebody had to pay the price to discover the benefits of industrialization, and slaves were the ones that paid that price. So this Fridays for Future Forgiveness protocol is a way for as I see it, the African American continental diplomacy, which is about two powerful continents, the American continent and the African continents, harmonizing their transatlantic diplomacy with some degree of sensitivity to the human factor that's involved, and in that human factor, come to terms with forgiveness as a way to reconcile the grievances of the past. So, and yes, Martin Luther King Day is that pivotal day where a superpower like the United States was challenged to come to terms with its original sins, to come to terms with the price that it paid in terms of militarism. Martin Luther King represents challenging that superpower to be accountable to itself. And we, as the beneficiaries of the Martin Luther King sacrifice, can do a lot better in representing what he stood for and what he ultimately paid for with his life. That's the idea, let alone the others before him that he spoke for. the Negro, you know, the voice of the Negro, the legacy of the Negro. So that's my perspective on it. We benefited from a unique perspective on the African American continental bridge, which is created through this Middle Passage. Hopefully, through these Fridays for Forgiveness and for this Countdown to Kingdom Day, we can master the narrative and make it as compelling as the other stories that we've heard about, like Black Lives Matter and so forth. Or, you know, but this one that we're now dealing with, Future Forgiveness, is that next story coming onto the mainstream. So thank you, Andrew. If you have any other, you know, I'm very excited to be part of the conversation and making this this Countdown to Kingdom Day really, you know, really make a difference.
Well, thank you so much. We do have a few other new guests, but before we do that, let me take a moment to reshare my screen, because there is a direct connection, not just between Bermuda and the Middle Passage, et cetera, but there's a very close relationship between Bermuda and Hollywood, in particular because it was Hollywood that created this myth about the Bermuda Triangle back in the early part of the 20th century. But here we are, Hollywood, and Donna Dimley, you and I walk every day, or at least we used to walk every day along the Sankofa Passage in Leimert Park, and that symbolized this bridge between not just, you know, the United States and Bermuda, but the link also with Africa. So what Mary Butterfield has done in Bermuda is, we feel, brought a sense of caring and understanding, and not just forgiveness, but awakeness. So I'm going to briefly share my screen here. This is how we're kind of morphing together these different collaboratives, right? So in Bermuda, it was back on November the 6th, I believe it was, when the children of Bermuda reached out to us. They had an assembly, a school assembly at Cedar Bridge Academy, and the children there asked for an assembly, a charrette is what it turned out to be, a collaborative between the students in Bermuda, and also we had students through Sir Bailey here in Los Angeles. But every week since then, we've been doing these Fridays for Future Forgiveness. It was just a few weeks ago, however, when the government of Bermuda announced that there would not only be vaccines coming, but everyone on the island had to take it, that the citizens got into an uproar, as I understand it. And Mary, you can kind of enlighten me if I've misunderstood, but what I then understood happened, that in these various WhatsApp groups that included Corn and Mary and others, it was decided to treat that as an intervention, not so much as a protest, not so much as a uproar, but as a conscious awakening to take a moment and stop the reactionary, knee-jerk, typical ways of going about destructiveness. Let's take this moment and reflect and think and plan and do. And so that was back on November 27th that we here in Los Angeles actually kind of kicked things off. And it was just last week with Silky D. Williams, her birthday bash at 5 Points Youth Foundation, that we kind of continue that. Now we're looking ahead to the Kingdom Day weekend. And as Corn is saying, we're not really limiting our thoughts to Martin Luther King so much himself, but the vision that he had about us, ourselves, enjoying the kingdom on earth, and the king and walking with the understanding that the kingdom of heaven is all around us, but it's up to us to be the ones to make that change. So perhaps Mary Butterfield, you would like to briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll do the rounds to see who we have in the house, if you're comfortable with that, Mary.
Good afternoon and Happy New Year to everyone. My name's Mary. My name's Mary Butterfield, and I guess I can see everything evolving now. I just add on to that, and how God is just moving in marked and mighty ways. I love how everything's coming together. Is my thing too loud? Hold on a second. Let me just close my door because my thing. Sorry about that. My watch is going and it's really loud. So yes, I just love how God's just moving, and it was so interesting how the group initially started. One of the things, I just keep going back on this, one of the things the lady said at first was we gotta commit to going forward and not quitting and not giving up, but to continue to stand for what is right. And with that, things started to shift when she removed herself from the group. And it was like that those words were used to motivate and encourage me and keep me in a frame where I didn't quit. It was like I'm determined now not to give up. And it's all for the better good of everybody, the whole world. Um, like I've said it over and over again, I serve a God, and He's done too much for me to let things go astray for not only myself, but for those that are coming after me, not only for you, but everybody that's coming after us. So I'm just looking forward, and I just watch as God just continues and continues. We have to just realize fear is not the way to live. He didn't create us to have a spirit of fear. It's our mind. He does nothing but good for everyone. So that's what I have for today. I don't know if it's enough, but um, just keep pressing forward. And I appreciate just the fact that the United States, Canada, England shows the impact that God is having. He's moving this worldwide so that we can make a difference on the whole world.
Well, thank you so very much, Mary. We really appreciate that. Now let me take a moment for station. Again, Mary, yes, we're all connected together. And for those here in the United States that don't know, actually it's the Gambe tradition in Bermuda that's very similar to what we have here in Los Angeles or here in the United States with jazz. Jazz is considered to be the only cultural heritage that the United States has produced. In Bermuda, that remains, as I understand it, to be the Gambe culture. And just like jazz traces its roots to Africa, so does the Gambe culture. So I had the privilege in 2012 of actually traveling to Bermuda as Ambassador AJ Gambe. Again, Donna, you might remember me walking around with this mascot head under my arms, but I did sometimes actually put him on. But he's here, and so let me share with you Ambassador AJ. Just 1 second here. Well, thank you for indulging me. Now we'll introduce some of the other people here, but I do want to say that this true Nubia that everything ended up on has very significance, a lot of significance for me too. I moved to Los Angeles from Macon, Georgia in 1980. And shortly after that, in 1984, I met this gentleman named Chief John Kinsey. He had launched in Compton, California, the Nigerian Consulate. And he explained that of all the maps that could be found, the earliest maps that were found around, well, before um, even the Rosetta Stone. It showed the map of the world, and the place that we now call Africa was then called Nigretia. So from that time to this time, I've always considered myself to be not just an American and not just an African, but a Nigretian in the sense of true Nubia. So that too brings us back around to our sponsor here, the Ed Fu Foundation. The Ed Fu Foundation was founded in 1999 as well. It was founded by Sheldon Williams in honor of his daughter. He wanted to show her that she was not just linked to the limitations of what she could see around her, but that she was linked to everyone else in the world, because everyone in the world is of indigenous African origin. We all come from Africa. So the Ed Fu Foundation was named after that city in Egypt that has the most well-preserved temple of Horus in the world. And Horus, in Sheldon's view, was a protector of children. So that's what brings us around here again. AJ Dagambe, he represents the child in all of us. And so that's, again, what kind of links us all together. Now, we do have several new people that are attending here. We have one returning guest, Papa Curley from Belize. So Papa Curley, you're an educator and so much more. Could you take the opportunity to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, definitely welcome to hear everybody's comments already that I've heard so far. And it's a pleasure being here again. Happy New Year to everybody. And I'm looking forward to an informative conversation as usual from the panel.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Now, before I show you this next slide, Papa Curley, tell us a little bit about what you do, and are you involved with kids, and what your viewpoint is, and how you think. Well, just I won't say words to you. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, so we'll know who we're dealing with.
All right, definitely. Well, I am a teacher up here in Palmdale, California, a special education teacher. I'm also an edutainer. That's what I call myself. I spit conscious lyrics, and that's what I continuously do. And I try to teach through the music.
Okay, well, thank you so much. So,
right.
Yeah, so look, I've shared my screen again. This may be the most important Kingdom Day parade ever in life, even though it'll have much fewer attendees. So there won't be 100,000 people lining the streets of Martin Luther King Boulevard and Crenshaw and ending up in Leimert Park for a festival. That won't happen. There won't be 2.5 million people watching it throughout LA County and Orange County on KABC. Well, that will happen. They do plan to have a hybrid version of the Kingdom Day Parade this year. So typically it was on for like 2 hours. The actual parade ended up being like 3 or 4 hours, but they only broadcast 2. This year, on January 18th, there's only going to be a 1-hour show for the Kingdom Day Parade. But the reason why I say this may be the most important one is because of its message. The message this year is equality for all humanity, our next step. And I'd like to ask all of you to kind of embrace that in with you. And I'd like to ask all of you to make that the theme for the rest of this year, right? Because just like the Kwanzaa Accord, Corn and I, back in 2012, we devised this idea that instead of just limiting ourselves to celebrating the 7 days of Kwanzaa at the end of every year, we would actually celebrate Kwanzaa 7 days a week for 7 cycles of 7 years. And that would align us with the African Union's Agenda 2063. And today also is the first day of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement going into effect. So I was there at 3 o'clock this morning, tuning in with the rest of the world to show how we're actually unifying ourselves around the world. But that even makes it more necessary for us here in the United States to be the ones to understand our connection to those people around the world. So now, Michael Hickman, you are the most recent one I think that's been here. So let me go ahead and first let you introduce yourself, Michael Hickman. And preliminary to that, let me say that I had the pleasure of meeting Michael some years ago, and more recently when he was appointed as the chairperson of the United Hood Nation Communications Committee. I've had a chance more recently to hear his views more so than I did before and learn more about him. So Michael Hickman, I really do thank you and appreciate you being here for a lot of reasons. One of them was because it was during the launch back in 2016 of the United Hood Nation that I was broadcasting all the meetings and sessions that we were having here around the world. And the people in other cities, there were like 30 cities when Minister Tony Muhammad was making his trip to talk about vaccines, of all things, that a lot of the audiences wanted to first hear about what was happening here in Los Angeles. They believed that what we were doing here was so important that they would follow our lead. So Michael Hickman, if you unmute yourself and introduce yourself, I would really appreciate that. And I've got to answer the door, so take at least 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'm not going to say too much on the vaccine situation. First, I'm just going to give my little statement. I do a lot of things. I'm multi-talented, so I don't really have too much to say on that. I'm multi-talented. I met brother, he just left, but I met him, yes, in 2015. I've been part of the United Hood Nation since then. Probably the youngest probably on here. I actually was helping them to basically, you know, try to help other Black African Americans to, you know, become, I guess, help their business in some type of aspect. And now I'm the I'm the chairman, one of the chairmen of the board of United Nation now, because I guess I kind of earned that, I guess. The other thing on the vaccine, I don't know how everybody feels about it. I kind of did some research on it. Wait, can y'all hear me? Good.
Yeah, I can hear you. In Bermuda, I can hear you.
All right. So I looked at the vaccine and I feel like it's not safe for us personally. I did some research on how many people have lived on and doing well, and some people have died. It's like any other vaccine. I mean, any other diseases. Some people will make it, some people wouldn't. But when you create a vaccine so, you know, rapidly and think it's going to make, I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried. And then we going through a lot, losing a lot. People, relationships, families is being separated because they don't know how to handle depression or stuff like that. So I'm a little worried. Besides just helping young people, I'd rather worry about what's going on with the world more so, because if we don't have a world to give them to live in, there's no point of us doing what we mostly do, you know, living and being successful in our goals. And it's getting worse as time goes, and we don't know what this year is going to hold. We hoping for the best, and we know we don't want to have the worst to happen. You know, I'm also got a radio station coming this year and a band. I'm working on music and stuff, but even with that, when you can't perform and do shows and concerts because you don't know what's going to happen. I have a 12-year-old, I have a 12-year-old daughter and I have a 6-year-old child. And how are we going to explain this to our kids? We so worried about ancient philosophy and try to learn, but we need to be prepared for what's to come. I looked on the news today. I don't really like looking at the news, but I looked at the news today and they gave us 600, like that's going to keep us. That's not going to do nothing for us. Everybody, some of my homie was like, hey, give me $100. For what? We got 600. Yes, my rent is a little cheaper than most, but that's not gonna help the communities that are living the day-to-day checks. We taking this device and we don't know what this is. That's a scary thing. I haven't really been interested in working because I'm so worried about what's gonna happen next. That's what we need to worry about. I even did some research where the community itself can open up another economy. It only takes 150 people to sign a bill, sign together that we're gonna open up our own country as a society. I know you missed out, Andrew. Well, you missed out on a lot.
Oh,
list out
that's
some
okay, but
knowledge.
that's exactly why I recorded it, so I can always get it when I come back.
Well, I want to share this with you. I want to share this with you. I don't know if some of us know. Most of us are mixed or close to mixed because of things in our past and generationals. But a lot of people don't know that we can open up another economy. It only takes 150 people, like Rockefeller did. Like some of the, I just, I'm doing research. And the reason why I'm saying this because we might have to. We might be going to a new generation where we're going back to the days where we was getting lynched, but in a different way. We getting hurt in so many other ways possible. I mean, music wise, gifted, we are very gifted. We can make money and we can take $20 and make it into anything. But the painful part of it is, are we going to survive this year? That I understand we want to give stuff to our kids. We want to give things to our daughters. We want to, I haven't really been sleeping really. I just been studying, learning different things because we don't know what's going to happen next. Did you get y'all $600 that hit to the check?
Well, there are those of us that here are not here in the United States, but thank you so much for sharing that, Michael. If you like, please put your contact information in the chat and we can follow up on that.
I will. I wanted to share that with y'all because at the end of the day,
yes,
it's music. I know we want to help our young people. We try to give our people what to do, but we also got to give them this. This is what they're really needing right now.
Well, that's kind of where we started because the idea was not just to give music that had no content, or like right now, music is more destructive than it is constructive. So part of the reason we got started with this was to be a hip hop reset, a reset for hip hop, a reset for gospel, and a reset for reggae. And the idea was that we would use tools in education like Sir Bailey can make available through STEAM, which is not just science, technology, engineering, math, but also art, architecture, and all those other isms that we need to have a holistic way of life. Thank you so much for sharing, Michael. I really appreciate that. And before we lose time, I am now going to ask if Lloyd Helferty could introduce himself so that he's now able to go on record. Lloyd Helferty, if you're there.
Yeah.
That was a short introduction.
No, I ended up pressing the mute button twice. So I'm in Markham, which is a city north of Toronto, Canada. It's sort of nestled really nicely between multiple Great Lakes, Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Georgian Bay. So we're this little triangle of land, actually a fairly large triangle of land. But as I had mentioned earlier, a couple of years back, we created an organization called Drawdown Markham. It was based on an organization called Drawdown Toronto. It's based on actually creating an action committee in the city to actually implement the solutions in this book called Drawdown that was written by Paul Hawken, who's also in California. And so what we wanted to do was actually say, okay, here's a book that actually has 100 solutions to climate change, and actually implement those solutions locally, as many that were applicable to us and our circumstances. So we looked at these 100 solutions in the book and we said, okay, which ones apply to us? Which ones can we do? And so we wanted to create a partnership with the city of Markham, where we live. And I looked at the 5 Points Youth Foundation partnership that they had created in Los Angeles, the Interfaith Neighborhood and Business Collaborative. We said this is a great framework. We've since expanded on that. We now have a 7 matrix partnership model that we put together. Initially public-private, civil society, academic partnership, expanded beyond that to bring in more sectors like the orange economy and the banking sector. And so what we want to do is create this partnership with the city, partnership with community, to actually start implementing these solutions. And now we've actually gone beyond just saying drawdown, because drawdown you can actually describe as SDG number 13, Sustainable Development Goal 13, which is climate action. So we were initially going to take climate action, SDG 13, to the extreme. So we wanted to implement solutions that would reverse climate change, which is what the drawdown idea is. But now we've expanded that beyond SDG 13, and we said, well, can we implement all of the SDGs, again, that are relevant to our community? So it's beyond just drawdown, it's actually implementing the sustainable development goals in the real world, in our community, in partnerships, for whatever sustainable development goals are relevant to what we need to achieve for our own community, with, of course, a focus now on SDG 1, 2, and 3. So no poverty, zero hunger, and moving forward, creating solutions within our community to achieving those SDGs.
Great, great. Well, I think that's a perfect segue. I have a 2-minute video that's going to describe what the Sustainable Development Goals are. And so that kind of gives you an idea of, it'll give you an idea of what the world is dealing with, but we're going to have to convey this message to our children. And this is done in the hip hop fashion. So I think you might.
The United Nations is an organization with goals of peace and sustainable development around the world. Their mission is huge, but we're breaking it down in 2 minutes. 17 sustainable development goals. Let's get to them, cause the more you know. Look, in some corners of the world today, people are living on $1 a day. Hey, that's not how it ought to be. So goal 1, eliminate poverty. And goal 2, root out hunger across the globe. There's 800 million people hungry, if you want to know. Number 3 is health and well-being, and getting people the health care that they need in. Learning in school are the harder goal 4. Education opens up minds and doors. Goal number 5 is empower girls and women so they can have the same rights that men are given. Number 6, people need water that's clean. Poor sanitation can spread disease. Carbon-free energy is goal number 7. And how to achieve it is the question that's pressing. But if we put our minds together and work hard, we can find a solution, I'm guessing. 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to line it. 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to line it. Now imagine that you work all day for no pay. Economic growth and decent work is goal 8. Goal number 9 is to foster innovation in infrastructure and industrialization. Goal number 10, inequality reduction. 11 is sustainable city construction. 12, well, that's sustainable consumption. So what we use matches up with production. Goal 13 calls for urgent action to combat climate change, cause we know what's happening. 14, protect life under seas. 15, protect life on land. Goal 16 is for peace and justice all over the planet. They're in high demand. And the final goal, number 17, is the critical factor, the heart of the machine. It's the strength in the way we achieve these goals of sustainable development around the globe. Yo, 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to line it. 17 sustainable development goals to improve life all around the globe. Protecting human health and the environment. Whatever bed we make, we gon' have to line it.
Now, Donna, can you imagine us being in a video like that, talking about what we're doing? Oh, wait.
I just love that. Let me tell you, I just got to take a moment. The other day, my daughter turned to a radio station that we normally do not listen to. And the words, the things that came out of the young men's mouth was appalling when they were talking about guns and making it raving to be criminals. And I was like, this is what the record industry is supporting. And when I hear music like this is what we need, because we are programming our children at young ages with this sound. And this music, hey, this music stirred me, and it taught a message, a message.
Yes, yes. Well, now you know exactly why we're here. That's the whole
Yeah,
point.
I mean,
We're trying to,
I'm delighted. I really am. This just happened yesterday with this music I heard, because I don't listen to this station, and I was like, wow. And so now God brought me on the next day to a whole new. He turned it around. I was appalled. I have a 4-year-old grandson, and he doesn't listen to that. But I know at some point in time, I can't totally stop everything he hears. But to think about what they've been promoting, I mean, it's just damaging to our youth. You know.
well, that's the perfect timing. Terrence Mayfield just joined us. And Terrence, you'll have a chance to listen to this again. I just played the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from a hip hop flavor. And
Oh
Terrence,
wow.
that's exactly what we like to do with reggae and also with gospel, right? To have messages that don't just entertain and not just edutain, but these goals that these people are talking about are what all of our children need to know how they can have a chance to change the narrative. If the governments of the world are spending their money on these things, if even here in Los Angeles, even though President Trump pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement in 2016, so he pulled us out of everything dealing with anything outside the United States. So that meant no more involvement with 193 other countries around the world about these very same things, the Sustainable Development Goals. So our schools aren't teaching what these are because our leadership isn't. But here in Los Angeles, our mayor is the mayor of what's they call the C40 cities. These are cities around the world that the mayors, the people that are on the ground. So Los Angeles has a Sustainable Development Plan. We launched it 4 years ago. The County of Los Angeles launched their sustainability plan 2 years ago, Donna. So these are the kind of things our children need to know about. We have to connect the dots between what the government's spending their money on and what our children need to be knowing how to show that they understand so they can have a chance to create the narrative. So that's what Michael Rendler is doing. That's what he's doing with Daoud Sherrills and the Watts Rising Project. They're taking this to the United Nations through the Ed Fu Foundation, the work that we're doing here. But Terrence, you're coming in a little bit, as I said, just in time. Maybe you could talk about what is happening here in Los Angeles to make positive changes that we can use to guide our kids and help them to create a narrative for the future that we need, not just from a humanitarian standpoint, but from an economic development standpoint.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for having me on the call. I think that as I dive deeper into this, what is critical is that we really focus on the economies of scale and the economics. I was listening to the African call this morning at 6 a.m., and all the leadership is speaking about the one trade environment that is coming out of Africa, that collective power. You know, when they talked about $2 trillion of spending power collectively. And then I think one of the other prime ministers spoke about it being somewhere around $3 trillion. And so when I looked at the population of Africa and I looked at the Black population in the United States and what our spending capacity is, our spending capacity here is equal to the African continent. Blew my mind. Not that I didn't know it, but to look at it and understand the significance of what drives the world, and we're talking about the world of business, is the pursuit of those dollars. And so when I was taking a marketing class back in college, one of the things that they talked about in the marketing was at a certain dollar amount, what is essentially a jealousy factor. So for the person that makes at the lowest scale, they market to the group above them because the people at the lowest scale want to live a life that is at the next level above them. And as simplistic as that sounds, we recognized as we broke down marketing schematics that they were only marketing things that were harmful in our communities. And we collectively were not stopping them from coming into the community. Ironically, I listened to Malcolm X yesterday as well, and he was saying we're the only group of people that let other people determine how they're going to take money out of our community. And not only do they determine it, they come and do it, and we say it's okay. So I'm saying all that to say that as much as we talk about the wonderful programs that all of the people around the world that I'm having a chance to connect with are doing, we must focus on the creation of an exchange system that allows us to be a player in the market. We must bring to market in a very deliberate and strategic way collective power of acquisition and of selling, delivering of goods and services so that we can begin to move the market the way that we see fit as a power that is not something that people talk about on paper and pursue, but we are deliberate and we are pointed in our efforts. As things are becoming intertwined around the world, the beautiful thing of Skype and the Internet of Things is that we can connect as a people and come up with missions. I think Queen Tashepi was talking yesterday, Princess Tashepi was talking yesterday about the significant structure, and she only talked for a few minutes, but I heard her, the significant structure of combining the social good with the business. We have done a great job of doing the social good. We must now be very pointed about the money. We want to call you, and Prince Andrew and I were on a call yesterday with one of our strategic partners, and some of the other partners are coming to market who want to play with us because they understand better than we do that if they don't do business with us, if the scales ever fall from our eyes, they are not going to be able to participate at the level that they have grown comfortable. So they figured it's better to play with us than to not. And we need to use that collective voice and power and our wallets in a very directed way. And we have to then translate that over to political power so that we can have major lobbying power here in the United States as we eliminate borders and we say that all of our people have the right to move freely throughout this earth that God has given us. When we deal with the Lloyd Helfertys of the world and what he has done in terms of making the way and creating the way, it's important also, I think, as we do business, that we do not get caught up in the idea that there are not people that there are people that don't look like us that are interested in there being a fair and just economic vehicle for us to make sure that people are not hungry, to make sure that people are not homeless, to make sure that people have an equal opportunity for education and the vehicle to apply the education. It's not enough that you are educated, you have a degree, and you may have student loans. Is there a place for you to practice what you have learned at a fair market value that allows your family to be sustainable? I will say this and then I'll stop. Corporations today, major corporations, are making a push to employ 1 million people the next 10 years. I think that number is very small, but we can start there as a baseline. We are, starting this week, are working diligently to connect with those corporations so that we can give them a proposal. I'd like for it to be a proposal where all of us are using our collective voice and power to say, deliver it to us. And we have the infrastructure, we have the expertise, we have the delivery models to get this to the people so that the goals and objectives can be met and we can exceed expectations. I think if we do it fractured, it's not going to work because they will pick us off one by one. But we must start with the economics. Thank you very much for letting me speak for a moment. Prince Andrew, I appreciate the platform. I hope I answered what you wanted. If not, I'll be more directed if you ask a direct question. But that's where I am. We have to make this money come to play so we can use it as our leverage point.
Well, thank you so much, Terrence. I really actually hope by next Friday we'll have a demonstration of commitment on behalf of the Kyocera team that we can invest in the money that we need to produce the promotional materials that describe what we're talking about. You see that most of our nonprofits, for example, along the Crenshaw LAX transit line, right? That's going to be opening up later this year. They're expecting what, 1 million people? Well, let's say 1 million people a month, just 1 million people a month, just to use a small number. That'll be traveling right along that route. But as of as of last year, only 5% of the businesses and nonprofits that are along that route even had a website address where they can be findable by people that are looking for what they're trying to get done. So that's why Sir Bailey and his Art Life Live project, what I wanted to talk to you about, Terrence, was making sure that we use our youth to produce the public service announcements for our nonprofits, but also produce the commercials and infomercials about our businesses, but about the entire city of Los Angeles. That's why we're considering this place, LA, as our opportunity to use this as a studio where we can produce our content and then share it around the world.
If I may, I want to clarify something. I saw a letter that you sent out to Kyocera this morning, and so I want to address it when I get on the call and I speak to these groups, my understanding is that we're able to work with a particular decorum and discretion. I share things very open in this space with this group, and some of it is internal information with Kyocera that hasn't been announced yet. So for instance, if they're saying, I'll just use this as an example, if they're going to make a $500 million commitment over the next 10 years, that may be some information that has not been disseminated to the lower levels yet. So we have to be very cognizant of putting it into the marketplace before the press release. I will share with you yesterday. Okay, I will share with you yesterday before our call with them that you were on. We talked very clearly about the press release for the first of the year. The things that you discussed on the call, we discussed prior. They are very open to that. And on Monday, when everything opens up, they'll be pushing things up the food chain so we can accomplish that. So I just want to make that clear. They have about 10 strategic partners that I'll be talking to this coming week that are able to bring pockets of money in. I will share with you that at this particular moment, we are just beginning to have the conversation about the larger amount of money they want to participate, and that negotiation is going to start in earnest this month. So I want to be clear about that. They also said at the local levels where the regions are divided, they have some spending capacity. We'll be addressing that. So it's likely that you, Princess Tashepi, I forgot who else was on the call yesterday. Probably Corin will be on that call as we talk about in a real strategic way how we make this happen in bite-sized pieces. They reiterated their commitment. Also, Alvarado Grant has come back to the table, and 2 investors came on yesterday that are very specific about how they want to participate and are asking for guidance. I'll be talking to them later today. I thought today was a holiday, but it's not. And I'll be talking to Canada this evening at 6 about the strategic plan with the United States, parts of Canada that you are familiar with, and parts of Africa. I just want us to be aware that on this money thing, we're being real quiet until people are ready to make that statement.
Got it. Well, just let me clarify too that each of the individuals that was in the email that was distributed are under a non-disclosure agreement that includes you, but I'll share that more openly. That's why from the beginning with Kyocera, I did ask if that's something they require. I'd be more than happy to provide that, Terrence, but I know how to be quiet, so not a problem.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And so that wasn't just directed to that, but you understand. Yes, sir.
Yes.
They're very, very, very conservative. We are quietly pursuing SoftBank. I can share that because SoftBank is more open with the things that they like to do. Even though they just made another commitment of another $100 million, we are really trying to direct that to this initiative with this call that we're on today, and also InvisiSmart. So we are We are after those $100 million pockets at a time.
Well, there's a part 2 of the email that I sent you that deals directly with that. I'll get that out to you, just yourself and Patrick and Stephen Corn Smith on that call, because it's
Yes,
critically important for us to look at long term, because this is not, the pandemic that we're in is not going to end tomorrow.
Oh,
And
yes, sir.
throwing $100 million at a multi-trillion-dollar problem is less than a Band-Aid on a shotgun wound. So
Yes,
we have
sir.
to be smart and understand that the African Union, they just this morning announced a continuation of a 50-year plan. And it's necessary for us here to have at least that kind of vision to be able to work with them. So the short answer is we're ready and prepared to move that
Yes,
way.
Well, to that end, Kyocera, the reason that they have not done a $100 million announcement is that they do not think that it's enough. And so from the time we started at the beginning of last year, that has been their position. That's why they haven't made an announcement, because they thought that it was gratuitous, but it did not have teeth to accomplish a long-term goal. So that's why they haven't done it. And I'm going to say this across this forum one other time. I mean, again, because I want people to know, I purposely have not asked Kyocera for money. Not that they wouldn't give it to us, but I purposely wanted us to have the infrastructure. And I did not want us to seem salacious. And I'm using that word on purpose. In the pursuit of money, and that's not enough. We need access to opportunity, and we need to be plugged into those 1,000-year plans that they make. Just like the announcement today was a 50-year plan, we must be a part of the fiber of the planning that's being done, because decisions are being made for those 50 years, for those 75 years today that will help them continue it on. So we have to be a part of that. And that's why I also talk about using our buying power to demonstrate that we are a player in the market. We are not the hungry babies that they're trying to drop food to. We are robust, wise, impactful, well-educated men and women capable of changing the trajectory of a corporation just by our words and the people that we can congregate. So that was important to me, that they not treat us, not Kyocera, but not that anyone treats us like we are looking for charity. We are not. We are an entity and force to be reckoned with. And it is good business for them to do business with us. So the way that I talk on this call with you guys is with this group of dignitaries and prince and princesses, royal courts, is very different of how I deal with them. I don't leave anything to chance or misinterpretation. I am direct and pointed, because this is our day.
Yes, yes, and yes. Thank you so very much, Terrence, for that. And I'll leave the floor open for anyone else to make a comment before I move on to the next phase of this, which is actually the end phase. I was only intending for us to do an hour. I do have a 4-minute video I want to show you about the overview of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's about 4 minutes long. And then I think Papa Curley has something to share with us, but give me just a moment. I'm going to cue this up, and then I'll come back to you.
Let's spread and talk matters. Africa, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, is set to start on January 1st, 2021, with its 30 countries which have ratified the treaty. The rollout of the new trading bloc is said to play a huge role in the growth of SMEs. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area, which is set to open up the 1.2 billion people market on the continent, is projected to boost intra-Africa trade by 52%, with 40% of goods traded within the continent being value-added products.
There's no model of development where countries have traded to be success stories without learning to trade with their neighbors. And these considerations are compounding the reality that the rest of the world is looking local. Africa has no choice but to also start looking local. And that means we have to model the best way of fast-tracking, beyond the political goodwill, the actual fiscal expansion of Africa's internal trade.
With majority of businesses on the continent being small and medium-sized, policies must be created to protect the sector.
It's extremely important that we start implementing a simple, transparent, effective, and predictable rules of origin regime, which allows for smaller enterprises to overcome the often realized non-tariff barriers to trade. As we know from the East African region, one of the main speed governors of regional integration has often been unwritten rules. One of the most common unwritten rules which impede trade is feigning ignorance. And learning from the experience of regions like this, Africa can now say, can we model the CFTA with a clear, enforceable, and transparent rules of origin regime, which allows for faster movement of goods between countries and services?
The problem of illicit financial flows needs to be handled if the single market is to be effective.
Our recent publication this year, the Economic Development in Africa Report 2020, demonstrates that Africa loses close to 90 billion US dollars every year in illicit financial flows, often through misinvoicing, tax avoidance behavior, and other illicit financial flows. This amount of money is already nearly 50% of Africa's missing financing for SDG goals. And if you cannot start looking at how the world can be in solidarity with Africa, looking for fresh resources, particularly at a time of scarcity like recovering from COVID, when you are doing little in stemming the flow of what is already owned by the continent.
Political goodwill from African leaders is critical, especially at a time economic nationalism is on the rise.
African political leaders have to be pushed to live their promise, to demonstrate that made in Africa has priority over imports from third parties in African markets. There's no point where we can have all beautiful rules and celebrate continental integration when merchandise coming from East Asia has a price advantage over merchandise coming from within Africa in African territory. This is the bane of Africa's integration in the past, and it's one of the challenges that have to be overcome. While this continent, Africa, has been holding its breath about rising economic nationalism, particularly in major trading powers, we should look at this not as a short-term phenomenon, but a long-term phenomenon. If you look at the politics of the US, traditionally the Republican Party has been the party of free trade. It's just an anomaly that they're ones who drove this first phase of economic nationalism. But now, as President Biden comes into office, we have to face the reality that the Democrats have been more traditionally economic nationalists than Republicans. So we should look in the medium and longer term that there is no alternative to paying added political and actual investment attention to unlocking the potential of a continental free trade area.
Currently, Africa is less industrialized than it was 4 decades ago, with the continent contributing only 3% of the world's manufacturing output, a state that the Continental Free Trade Area seeks to change.
Let's talk about timeshare maintenance fees.
Well, thank you for your patience. I believe Princess Seppi actually had a chance to review the recording. I had the opportunity to, it was 1 hour long, so I had a chance to review it. Princess Seppi, do you have any comments on the African Continental Free Trade Area and how your organization might help us here in the United States bridge the gap? Is there a way for us to do business with you in South Africa from right here, right now? Well, Princess Seppi, I don't hear you, so perhaps you're not near your computer. So, Papa Curly, you had a link you want me to share, but if you'd be so kind, I'm allowing you to share your screen. Is that something you could share with us, Papa Curly?
Actually, that link is just samples of my music online. I don't necessarily care to share that at this point. But on what we just saw just now with the African Free Trade Agreement, I would like to point out that if you don't mind me saying, that Her Excellency Ambassador Shiambari Kwao outlines a brilliant way forward on this issue. I think one of her quotes is that Africa need to negotiate with the rest of the world as one bloc, in opposed to as individual countries, to make an impact on this, on this free trade agreement.
Well, thank you. As a matter of fact, it was in 2017 when she was actually it was just after Africa Day, May 25th of 2017, I believe it was, that the ambassador gave me the honor of reaching out through my contact in Washington, D.C., Charles D. Sharp with the Black Emergency Management Association. And she reached out directly to me, and I connected her with Silky D. Williams, because what she was saying is that it's going to take music and entertainment to engage the youth, because the African population, over half of them are 30 years old or younger. And it is, in fact, the hip hop culture that's driving a lot of the decision-making on the ground. So she asked us to be the ones to head up a reset of the musical direction for hip hop to have a positive economic impact. Again, that's why we're here right now today. That's why Corin Smith and I have been working so diligently on these past few weeks to pull together people like you, Papa Curly. I know you have conscious music. Sir Bailey, I know you have conscious music. Michael Hickman, I know you know what that means. So this is a small team that's being asked to step up. Sir Bailey, could you speak to that, please?
I wanted to find out, Papa Curly, did you say you're here in Palmdale, California, my friend?
Yes, my brother.
Bless up, bless up. I hope we can get to work together soon. I'm in Altadena. The school is in South Central. We've been doing some development in Bakersfield with a project called the Bakersfield Island. And the school that I'm with is a youth build charter school. And so there's a couple facilities out that way in Palmdale. I love to, connect offline and see if you can provide some services to the young people there and just collaborate our work.
Definitely, by all means, I'll definitely reach out to you and share my number with you. Definitely. And I just wanted to say that I totally see what you're saying. Excellent. Throw it out. There's a song that I did after I visited Uganda last year called Wake Up Mama that she very well embraced and been using it as almost like a team. And we're currently shooting a video in Uganda with the ghetto kids, the triplets ghetto kids, who's very popular, and they're shooting a video for this. You're muted, Andrew.
Thank you, Papa Curly. I was wondering, Papa Curly, could you perhaps begin to identify some playlists that you believe would be positively impacting the listeners, particularly the youth? And then, Sir Bailey, I'm wondering if you could pull together a collaboration so that next Friday we could have a session with the kids in Bermuda again. But in such a way that we don't just talk, we have a way to give them some entertaining and conscious music. Do you think we could pull together something like that, Sir Bailey? And I see you're still connecting. Did you hear me, Sir Bailey?
I did. We've had that. I'm sorry, you can go first, Brother Curly.
No, I'm done. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, no worries. We have several of those playlists. I was going to try to bring something up to share, but we've been asking young people, at least for the last 5 years, to share with us. It's my son calling. Hit him back. I'd like to share your video from him too.
Yes,
asking
please.
them about AIM, right? Is our AIM, anthems, icons, and monuments and movements. Actually calling it AIM up. So yes, and yes, as you would say. I do have some past assignments of young people just saying what songs do they feel would be great anthems to bring the world together. What did they hear their parents? What I ask them to do is talk to their parents, talk to people around them about, because they often say there's not that much positive music out. But even asking some friends, there is a lot of positive music in the world today from young people. I'm just fortunate and fortunate to come out from the generation that had music like Poor Righteous Teachers and X-Clan and Public Enemy, so many different options to, and then just fun stuff from Fresh Prince, storytelling of Slick Rick, where you had that variety, that option of the inner city experience. But we know what marketing and different purposes marketing can have in society. So I'm just glad to see that people are recognizing it needs to change. We know there's a battle. I'm glad the young people are starting to recognize how important the power of music is. And with that being said, I recommend the book. I should have a copy with me here. I'll bring it. The Song of Life by Yair Agusan Bailey. The Song of Life is a great look at the power of art from a young artist's perspective.
Is that a publication that you believe we can begin to commercialize?
Oh yeah.
Because the other thing I like to ask both Papa Curly and you, and also even you, Donna, because I think you also are an author. What I like for us to do is have a back to black weekly buying sessions where we're buying our own products and services. So the idea of now, what I've done, most of you know me as the president of 5 Points Youth Foundation, but earlier, last year now, I started the PARXTC Export Trading Company. The idea is to commercialize our activities to fund our humanitarian projects. So with that in mind, what I'm suggesting is that you add about 25% to whatever it is that your cost is, and then give me the opportunity to package and merchandise that so that the income can actually be split. My model shows that few organizations or companies, particularly small companies, few of them build in the cost of marketing into their pricing, particularly when they're doing their own promotions. Few others build in the cost of promotions. For example, for these big companies, they have no problem in spending 50% of their income before they even make a profit just to be able to get the word out. So my thought is that, and this is not a new thought, it was back in 1984 when this first concept came up with the Power Referral Network. For example, if everybody on this group right now, we got about 10 people here, if we all decided that we would have a product or service to sell, right? We're gonna add 25% on top of that, right? So my company will come in and not only would I promote it, but I would give each of you half of that for any sales that you come up with. For example, if you have a book, Sir Bailey, or Yair has a book for $25, let's use a number, right? So if you get $20 out of that and there's $5 left, well, half of that goes to Papa Curly because he's the one that brought in a client or customer. We can automate this now. So it's not like you have to track everything, just it's punch it and go. But that's the concept that I like to build for our cooperative economics, because now Coin and I started this idea about the Kwanzaa Accord back in 2013 with Umoja as the first step. But now here we are in 2020. Kuji Chagulia is where we are now. So in order for us to make self-determination, we have to apply cooperative economics. So the idea is that what we're doing here is not just blowing smoke. The idea is to let's do something about this. So that's what I'm committing myself to do. If each of you will make that commitment, then to me, then I'll make that commitment to you, so we can all benefit from this collaborative together.
I like it.
Yeah, I would hi everybody, Corin here. Thanks again for everybody for staying the course with us. I appreciate very much what Terrence has to say and how he's brought a focus to the movement about this this functionality called capitalism, because Martin Luther King himself, God bless him, declared Black people, the American Negro is destined to live in an island of poverty surrounded by ocean of wealth. Because the burden of intergenerational trauma has been so inflicted on him, he cannot lift himself into the spectrum of capitalism, right? Our own, I would say, focus within the Encounter LA think tank in particular has been to ensure that in Los Angeles itself, the heart of the Rodney King riot, or the Rodney King generation, which was the first sort of modern demonstration of the disconnect between the inner city of urban culture in America and the police state or the architecture around it, that if LA cannot fit, having been a generation of Rodney King turmoil, how can we expect others that are less privileged than Los Angeles to get over it? So how do we change the narrative to connect the dots? Now, in the Encounter LA think tank, of which we're now ourselves still, we spent 10 years to address the arrival of capital into the inner core of urban America. And Terrence, to me, just represents that particular surgical capital creator who actually has figured it out, a surgical, precise delivery of capital into the LA core, right? For me, I just make it my business to be sure that we understand capitalism would not exist without the previous industry or the previous economic order that incubated it, known as slavery. Slavery was a definitive shift from forced labor economics to voluntary labor economics. And the profits of the capitalist industry would not exist without the plantations that underwrote it. And it puts a very clear, distinct authority on the legacy of the Negro population that was sacrificed to the Industrial the foundation of the Industrial Revolution. Some people feel even now the only way you can do true justice to the American capitalist system is by paying reparations to the people or the population that produced it, no differently than what was done in other, I'll say, moral vexing conditions, like the World War I, where industrial warfare led to the destruction of Europe, or World War II, which led to the destruction of the Jews. There is a very debate in America itself, as I watch it, what does America owe to its Negro population? You know, so in our particular think tank scenario, Encounter LA think tank, we're not spectating on this vexing question, what is causing the American Negro population to be disconnected from the wealth at its doorstep? It's obviously more than just financial disconnect. It's profoundly spiritual, psychological, legal, constitutional hemorrhaging that's created this disconnect. But I think our team has reached the pinnacle right now of what I would consider to be better than money, which is moral persuasion. And to me, that's just to amplify where, as I see it, Terrence's voice has given this think tank and these Friday for Forgiveness deliberations very real potency in terms of whatever we say that we now have in the public domain, we are actively obliged to say we have access to capital. That capital is being exchanged for more than just profit or humanitarianism. It's being paid for forgiveness. Okay? And debt forgiveness is, in fact, an aspect of capitalism. Because capitalists know if you borrow money, you have to pay that money back. Because if you don't pay it back, there will be no forgiveness. Okay? So if forgiveness, and because forgiveness is such a profound capitalist doctrine, is essential to the Judeo-Christian civilization, of which America is the sole superpower on earth, and a great defender of its privileges and its powers and so forth. We, and our team, are being obliged to get a grip on it and so forth, because because America is so powerful, because America is the overwhelming decider of the fate of the planet, it's very important for America to find a sense of its moral obligations, its moral discipline. And this particular team, because of its, as I say, proximity to Hollywood, its proximity to Kingdom Day, its proximity now to Kyocera and other entities, as I hear it, we have a very clear opportunity to create content, a message, a thought pattern, just as I would say pivotal as George Floyd, Can't Breathe. He said it several times on TV, live and direct, being sacrificed and calling for his mother. That was 3 minutes of his life, okay? That changed the perspective of like Black Lives Matter. In this particular narrative that we have, what does Kingdom Day mean in 2021 from our team's perspective? And if we can get that condensed to 3 minutes, as clearly as George Floyd did his, I think we've got some way going forward, all right? To make a real difference to the Negro problem. Not the African-American, not the Pan-Africanist, not the African Unionist. What is the problem with the Negro that was sacrificed to the slavery of the past? The Negro that Martin Luther King spoke to. Okay, I go down that road just to get some degree of, I would say, pointedness in terms of our understanding of what happened in the civil rights era with the, what I guess Martin Luther King imagined was a second emancipation, giving Blacks the right to vote. They've had a 50-year journey enjoying the right to vote. They've had freedom of expression, all kinds of constitutional freedoms at their disposal. We are now witnessing the inauguration of a Black female vice president, another milestone in Black American culture. They say that Black Lives Matter was essential to the coronation or the arrival of this particular next milestone in American politics. And our team, I think, in its proximity to this inauguration and to this particular, I would say, Kingdom Day weekend, truly can, in fact, be that George Floyd of the historic, and to create a broader context. What is at stake within this next cycle of American superpower politics? Because if they can't understand forgiveness as a new economic order that's being told not to print money for humanitarian reasons, American capitalism itself is at stake. And if Americans can't come to terms with what that means with this particular new administration, we have some serious problems in terms of like American culture, you know, American politics. As a Bermudian, I make it clear to Andrew and to the Encounter LA fraternity, Bermuda serves as the closest trading partner to the United States. When America sneezes, we catch the cold. If America gets a vaccine, we're the guinea pigs in that vaccination politics, which is why I'll be the first one to tell Andrew, hey, Andrew, this Kingdom Day weekend, or this vaccination, or this particular cycle in the Encounter LA think tank is not like the one last year. This one's a lot more testy, which is why we have to take this ThanksLoving protocol, this Encounter LA thing a lot more seriously this year than the one we did before, because if we don't get this correct this time, there will be consequences or worse consequences than the last time that we didn't get it right. Let's fix it. How do we ensure that the consequences of this inauguration or this election are much more effective or much more holistic for the future? And how do we get ourselves into a state where if someone like Terrence shows up with the capacity and intensity to invest, they were able to accept it and monetize it, as capitalists, not consumers. Because if we can master that story this year, and we can understand what our particular industry focus is, then we got a path to heal the world. At the beginning of this event today, I opened up saying that Fridays for Future Forgiveness is an adult response to the grievance of a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, 15-year-old, who made it very clear her disgust. Every Friday, she expresses her disgust to the adults that have not risen to the standard to care for the future of the environment. Greta Thunberg, she feels that the scientific lobby, the industry lobby, the education lobby, the political lobby have failed the children. She did such a good job articulating her grievances towards the adults. She got a Nobel nominee Peace Prize and only lost the nomination, apparently, to the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. But she was on her way. She is like Martin Luther King 50 years ago, or Haile Selassie 50 years ago, who was also a Nobel Peace Prize nominee, but she's 15. This Fridays for Future Forgiveness is an adult response to that complaint. Say, we're the grown-ups hearing what this child is saying, let's try to address what she has clearly articulated as a virus or some problem within the leadership of the adults that we represent. And the value, as I see it, of this particular protocol, for me especially, has been to be sure that whatever I do next for these children, when I go back to the assembly, to prove to them, we've heard what their complaints are and we have the tools to fix this, that I feel this team has genuinely put itself to think through the consequences of what we have to say. It just happens to be that in us addressing that grievance of the environment, we're now dealing with vaccines, economic dislocation, psychological trauma of this shutdown, because the school itself is not open. Because grown-ups are saying it's not safe. So what are we supposed to do about that? You feel me? These are the actual real-time deliverables that I would be measuring, because we're actually in the state of emergency. So anyway, so I just put that out there to, first of all, amplify. I hear loud and clear what Terrence is saying. I had to put the big spotlight on, so yeah, give thanks. He's brought the language of capitalism into the conversation. I hear loud and clear what Tough is saying as an artist, and what Saberi is saying as an artist. We have the power to change people's minds and hearts through music, and moral clarity, moral conviction. I think we could, between those two capital perspectives and music morality perspectives, we have a lot to give to the world in the next 14 days as a message for Kingdom Day that truly becomes a George Floyd vindication moment. Okay, we have the message and the music and the heart that can change hearts, people's minds away from revenge or I would say distraction, to being very focused. It's time for forgiveness, to heal. It's not a time for war. And convince people that that's the way to go. And I think without any further real, I think complexity, it's very simple. Very simple. to achieve. You know, if Martin Luther King was able to be memorialized, you know, if Bob was able to be the pinnacle of reggae music, if Michael Jackson was able to be the king of pop, no headaches. What's holding us back in this generation from achieving those heights? Pop, reggae, hip hop, children loving and celebrating their futures. We had it. We always got it. Just use it, you know? So I give thanks to everybody for where we are. I said it's been quite a Friday. It's the first Friday of the new year. It happens to be Emancipation Day from Abraham Lincoln's era, the day he announced the arrival of the emancipation. And we don't necessarily celebrate January 1st as an Emancipation Day because it's a bit, you know, I guess this is one of those other things that we necessarily get into. We can take a lot of things for granted. We forget. That's why we have books and monuments and other things and prophets to remind us what the price of being human is. You make mistakes. Without forgiveness, you're going to repeat it. But if you understand it, hopefully you can learn and you can grow and go forward. Otherwise, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, I always lean on Marcus Garvey as the ultimate Black patriot, complaining to the Negro, if you cannot do what other nations have done, or the people have done, you deserve to die. That's Marcus Garvey. A totally different message from Black Lives Matter. My interpretation of Marcus Garvey is that we need to understand our own saints, our own prophets, our own value as a people in terms of the Black race or the Negro race. And one of the greatest things I think that the great powers have done, they get over it when they go from war or genocide, whatever they go through, they get over it, they make the adjustment, they go forward, they forgive themselves. Otherwise, how do they live with themselves? How do the Germans live with being the beneficiaries of Nazism, or the British live with being the beneficiaries of imperialism, or the Vatican come to terms with its own privileges over humanity? They forgive themselves. Okay? No apologies. This team, I think, has the power to forgive itself, become the vessel of forgiveness for the Negro journey through American slavery. We've got moral supremacy because we've learned the lessons, as I see it, of Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, all these guys. You know, we are our own worst enemies. And we learned it. We're moving on. Starting definitively 2021, it's a new day. That's why this team is here, okay? And that monument that we put on the ground in the ocean 20 years ago was where we as a race have a visible sign. Somebody had to come to terms with how those bodies got on the Atlantic and how they got forgotten and what it means to remember them and become accountable for your decisions or your forgetfulness. Somebody had to do it. That's what this team represents. Taking responsibility for things that other people have forgotten about themselves. And going forward, so I'll rest there, but give thanks everybody for entertaining these vibes, okay?
Well, no, I think we need to thank you, Corin, for that. And I would like for us all to take 2 minutes of reflection. I want to share this video that Corin and I orchestrated, even though we're not experts at it. We took what we had and we wanted to make what we made out of it what we could. So I'd like to share it with you. Just a moment, please. Well, thank you for your indulgence. This little 2-minute video took us 100 hours of work to put it together over the course of 5 days, but it was well worth it because you can see we pull from what we already have. We didn't look for what we don't have. Everyone in that video has either been on one of these calls or, well, everyone's been on one of these calls except Reverend Alexander Hamilton. As you may know, he's the husband of Alicia Hamilton. She's been here, but he's also known as the producer of the Aretha King's Amazing Grace album, right? So he's still alive and well. We want to honor and thank him on the Martin Luther King Day weekend. We want to have 3 days of celebration. 1 day of conscious hip hop on the Friday, a day of conscious reggae on the Saturday, and a day of conscious gospel on the Sunday. And again, we can do all this with just the people that we know. With the conditions that we have now, all we need is the professional equipment to actually record the entertainers that are right on this call right now. We don't need much more than this. But of course, we can, in fact, ask to get much more. We can make this a celebration. We can even make it a telethon, or we can even raise money for what we need to get, what we decide what we want to spend the money for. And if people decide to give us money to do what we say we want to get it done for, then now's the time for us to be putting that out there. So I need you to start thinking about what that looks like. Next Friday at 10 o'clock, hopefully we'll be able to share this same meeting, same time with the kids in Bermuda. And it'll be up to us to decide what we're going to do after that. So I'd like to ask all of you to.
It's the 15th, Andrew. It's not next week. It's 2 weeks to the assembly. It's the 15th of January, not the 8th.
So,
yeah.
So in that case, I'd like to ask everyone to let's take next weekend as a rehearsal. Let's decide, let's do a walkthrough next Friday to see what it looks like. And if we record it and the world ends, at least we'll have it, we can replay it. But I'd like to ask each of you to make a commitment to be here next Friday at 10 and invite anybody and everybody you know that wants to be involved with this or can be involved with this, and let's make it happen. If we put it in the can, we don't have to worry about snafus. All we have to do is push the button. So that's what I offer to you. And before I wrap this up, Sir Bailey, I've got.
Oh man, you just dropped out. I can't hear you. Say that one more time. I was just taking my mic off to say thank you.
Look, I found something on Yair I wanted to share with the people on my video. So I wanted to do that first.
Man, and I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for the years of support. The Living Well Tour has been honored and humbled to be a part of transitioning what the world called Death Alley into a living, loving space. And thank you, Ambassador, for your patience and persistent for perfection in our attitudes and our hope, right? Just and how we doing? We're doing it at least fantastic, better at this moment than ever before, faithfully, hopefully, lovingly, because that's the energy, the law of our magnetic mind, the meditation on our mission, and knowing that our movement creates momentum. This is it, y'all. I'm so excited. Thank you for sharing, Ambassador. Big up.
Yes, yes, and yes. Strong, brave Yair Bailey, the son of Philip Bailey. I'm sorry, the son of Sir James Bailey, who's the son of Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Please enjoy.
Give it in my son. 97. Niggas.
Yair, Agu, song.
Why you tryna claim that, boy? Claim the world. The world is yours. Cause you are God's children, so bow to the Most High. No double cup, blunt bomb gon' make you this strong to fight that feeling a job. No roster man vibration, yo, this is Desperado. We all desperate for some real love. They searching for El Dorado, a land full of gold. But we got that in our souls, cause the Christian home is heaven, always on the Zion road. Ethiopia, stretch our hands forth. Selassie, Yo, Solomon, what's the difference, bro? I feel like David in his cobbler cake, Moses with the microphone. That's my staff with these words. Pay the path, Jaja children going home. Pack your bags, even if you gotta leave your mom and dad. If you feel the call and come, you can be the stone that he used to slay Goliath with. The one that the builder refused, but God used. Cause this is Exodus. Movement of your people, this is Exodus. I said it's movement of your people, this is Exodus. If you wanna survive the fire, this is extra one. This is Exodus. Yo, this is Exodus. Movement of your people, this is Exodus. Say this movement of your people, this is Exodus. If you wanna survive the fire, this is extra one. This is Exodus. Police, what they pocket rockets, pull them out like pennies, lay them on the ground like brown boys face down just like a penny. How unlucky, they say, y'all we the smallest ones, together we make many. That's why they divide us up. United we are millions, just stop the killing. Police and people too, we all make mistakes. Just watch who you give your power to. Know your enemies, they got a gun to shoot, but who they target be? Is it me? Is it you? Public enemies, number 1 and 2. Malcolm X by any means necessary. I'ma get this money to feed my family, that's cool. But why you rob your neighbor, your brother, that's family too. Hungry man, the angry man, so what he supposed to do? They make us drink for a treat, then take our candy boot, Lord. How much longer shall we sow and another reap? How much longer shall the lies and the covers keep? The devil schemes disguise in the nighttime, but I know the sun will rise in the right time. July 23, birth of Selassie. Michael Jordan 23, check his logo, Trinity. Oh mercy, mercy me, check the Mercedes. These are mercy days. You gon' need a 4th man in that furnace when that fire blaze. You gon' need a 4th man in that furnace when that fire blaze. You gon' need a 4th man in that furnace and that fire blaze. And Christ be with us.
Sweat not thyself for evildoers, neither be thou envious of the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like grass and wither like the green herb. Trust in Jah and do good, so shalt thou inherit the land and verily be fed. Delight thyself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of thy heart. Commit your ways to the Lord.
Movement of your people.
And there you have it. And we are about to make this exodus. So thanks to everyone for joining us here. Now's the time for closing thoughts, and it's time to wrap it up. Well, we hope you do join us next week. So I'll open the floor for any closing thoughts. Now's that time. We have no rush.
Actually, I'd actually like to ask a question. I heard in the song reference to July 23rd. What is the significance of that date?
Haile Selassie's birthday.
Okay.
Well, if that's the case, we're going to call a wrap here. I thank all of you for joining us for this Fridays for Future Forgiveness. And we certainly do want to invite you for next week. And we'd like you to invite everyone you know that wants to contribute to our tribute. Because again, this year's theme for the Kingdom Day Parade speaks clearly to all of us. So we like to have our own celebration next week. And of that, we're going to record it. It's not always pretty, but it always can be edited. So that's where we're going to need the assistance of our Sir Bailey and the Art Life Live crew and the people behind the scenes to make sure we produce something that is at least as professional as what everyone else can do. Without asking anyone else anything, we can broadcast this on the Revelation Network, trn.tv. We can push it out to 400,000 subscribers. But unless it's broadcast quality, that's as far as it goes. We need to have content that KGLH can play on the radio. We need to have content ABC can play on the television. We need to have something that BET can pick up and push. And again, it's our message. But again, we have to be ready to get paid. We have to be ready to first produce our own commercials, first produce our own sales. This is a brand new year. We're going back to black. We're asking people to buy from us. What are we selling? What's our list? What's our inventory? What's the profit margin? What's the infrastructure? Who gets paid? How does it get out? All those answers are what we need to get done in order to move forward. So again, closing thoughts, anyone? This is it. I'm going to wrap it up. If there's no closing thoughts, I'm going to say I love you all and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, and we're out.